Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next video on the Practical Weapons channel. And I'm going to start or continue my historical weapons ongoing series. And today I want to talk about World War I bladed weapons. Again, within the limit of what is available to me, within a fairly limited amount of things. And talking about an item called Bebut, which is a Russian Empire short-bladed weapon for World War I, unlike, for example, a German bayonet, the early German bayonet, and some other countries such as the US bolo and so forth, which unfortunately I do not have for comparison. This was issued to the Russian 1st Artillery units in 1907 and served both to the Russian army and then the Red Army after the revolution until 1920s. This particular blade was designed to replace shashka, which is basically a Cossack long blade, which anybody interested in this can find information about. It was deemed too long for the artillery, basically to allow them to move faster. In 1902, the Russian Imperial Army was issued fast reloading guns, and running around with a long blade on the side was found to be, how shall we say it, not efficient. So first the artillery, then other units were issued Bebut. It is based on a Caucasian blade. A lot of Russian bladed weapons were based on that, both shashka and Bebut, and what Cossacks used. This is an example of what they brought from the Caucasus. Russian army had been fighting in that area for a very long time because, as you can imagine, the mountain people, they were not very peaceful, many bandits and so forth, just like now, basically. And they had their own weapons, things that were usable in the close confines, things that were smaller but were still functional. And this is the example of what they went with. This was issued in 1907 and was used in the First World War to fight with the Germans and the Austrians in the confines of that kind of warfare. As you know, the warfare during World War I was very different from the old style open length, because first of all you had, even though limited numbers, machine guns, you had artillery, had all kinds of changes to the warfare. But one of the biggest part was soldiers often had to fight hand to hand. And where did they fight? For those that don't know, again, this is the time that they call trench warfare. So they had to fight in the trenches. All kinds of units, Americans, British, French, spent a lot of time in the trenches, then all of a sudden rose up to attack the opposing side, running to the enemy trenches and then fighting. And fighting was done with anything that they could find. Bayonets, entrenching tools, take your pick. Knives, clubs. And the Russian army, in many cases, had this as their option. And as you can see, it is a very interesting blade. Now, it is not small, definitely not a small blade. And we're actually going to measure it, just to make sure that you know exactly, you and I both know exactly what it is supposed to be in length. And admittedly, I only have a centimeter type measuring mechanism here. So if you want to get in inches, divide by 2.5. So the blade on this particular model is about 43.5 centimeters. Admittedly, I cannot tell you what that is in inches, but think of it this way. This is my other measuring mechanism. Ruler, 6 inches. So 1, 2, 3, about, it's less than 20 inches blade, definitely. It's probably 16, 17 inches. I don't even want to think right now how long that is. But it's definitely bigger than your regular bayonet. In the US, this would probably be comparable to the bolo knife. And that was also used during that conflict. But I think it's actually still bigger. And unlike a knife, this can be used from horseback. It can be used as a cutting, slicing, or somewhat stabbing tool. Comes with a sheath, of course. This is the original blade from World War I that was loaned to me by a person I know over here in the south. So let's see how much it weighs. So this is a 27 ounce or almost 1.7 pound weapon. Not that little, definitely not that little, and very handy in the hands of the people that needed it. So on this note, I'm going to finish this video. Obviously I cannot test it, being an old weapon. And just think, all of this can be found in the US. There are a lot of historical pieces available in the US, both from World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and so forth. And of course, more modern conflicts. And the conflicts are not necessarily the ones that the US participated in. Because as you know, US played very different roles in different wars. And often, in some areas, they simply didn't go into. Such as World War I, US played very limited role. It joined late. World War II, again, it had more fight with Japanese than the European region, for obvious reasons. I mean, it basically got attacked by Japan, so had to respond to that first. But still, all of these things are available in this country for anybody that's interested. It is still possible to find those kind of things in the pawn stores or in the gun stores where people sell them. In the gun stores, of course, you're going to find more of the firearms of the different ages, going back to the 17th century even. So if you like are interested in the history, find them, buy them, keep them, because we need to remember the history. And from my perspective, my hobby is military history. We cannot forget about this. We have to remember to avoid making the same mistakes that our ancestors made, such as the ones that allowed the creation of the Soviet Union and so forth. Again, that's in my case, since I'm from that area. US made its own share of mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The goal is to remember and not make them more than once. And on this note, thank you for watching. And I'm not going to go into politics, as you can imagine. This is a weapon channel. Is this weapon practical? Probably. If it was a better metal, probably even now. Was it practical during its time? Absolutely. And on this note, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. And keep practicing to become practical, because without practice, you will not achieve anything.